La relación entre Canadá y Estados Unidos atraviesa uno de sus momentos más tensos en décadas. El gobierno estadounidense, encabezado por el primer ministro Mark Carney, ha lanzado un ambicioso plan de fortalecimiento militar que, en sus propias palabras, busca proteger al país frente a todas las amenazas. Entre esas amenazas, aunque sin mencionarlo de forma directa, parece incluirse a su vecino del sur. Un pequeño recordatorio rápido: si te está gustando el video, no olvides darle like, suscribirte y comentar, que nos ayuda bastante. Dicho esto, pasamos a video.
Total spending on defense and security will quadruple by the end of this decade relative to 2023-24 levels. Now, we are laser focused on ensuring that this spending has the maximum impact on behalf of all Canadians. That means working with the best partners. It means getting maximum value for money with the greatest benefit for jobs and economic activity here in Canada. And that's why in June we concluded the new EU-Canada Security and Defence Partnership to advance Canada's participation in the European Security Initiative and Rearm Europe plan. This will give us better access to European defence partners for our needs, and it will give our defence suppliers greater opportunities to help supply Europe's needs. We are also in the process of creating a new defence procurement agency to move at pace to get our armed forces the equipment that they need when they need it. And our investments in defense will expand Canada's industrial capacity so we can equip Canadian armed forces using Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian critical minerals, Canadian cyber, and Canadian lumber. We will increase our security presence around the world, including to protect NATO's eastern flank, and by protecting Canada, we will protect NATO's western flank.
En una visita a la base aérea de Trenton, la más grande del país, Carney anunció un aumento histórico en el presupuesto de defensa. La inversión se multiplicará por 4 antes de que termine la década y no se limitará a la compra de equipo. También va a incluir mejores salarios para el personal militar y la expansión de capacidades en el Ártico, ciberseguridad y defensa frente a misiles avanzados. El mensaje es claro: Canadá no va a esperar que su geografía lo proteja como en el pasado. Con el Ártico más expuesto por el deshielo y la creciente inestabilidad global, Ottawa busca diversificar sus alianzas, estrechando lazos con la Unión Europea y reforzando su participación en planes de Europa, implicando que en materia de seguridad el vínculo con Estados Unidos ya no es exclusivo ni incuestionable.
In an increasingly dangerous and divided world, the international order, built after the Second World War and reshaped following the Cold War, is under pressure. Russia is emboldened. China is more assertive. The long-held view that Canada's geographic location will protect us is becoming archaic. Our Arctic waters are increasingly open, and there have been rapid advances in cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum, and advanced missile capabilities. Climate change is making our country more vulnerable. The Arctic's melting. Our wildfires and floods are more frequent and devastating. And these are all threats to which the Canadian Armed Forces responds. The Canadian Forces keep our people and communities safe through major disasters. I'll give examples. This summer, Canadian Forces have helped communities in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, soon Newfoundland, and Labrador, including already by safely evacuating over 6,000 Canadians. This week alone, Canadian Forces members, originally from CFB Trenton, airdropped life-saving humanitarian aid into Gaza. Canadian Armed Forces are standing guard in Latvia and continue to deploy around the world to stand with our allies in defense of peace and security. When a crisis breaks, or Canada's safety is threatened anywhere in the world, this base is the first to spring into action. And from CFB Trenton, fallen heroes have been repatriated to their families with honor, carried along the highway of heroes, draped in the maple leaf, to be etched in our memories. CFB Trenton is much more than an Air Force base. It's a community. And here, service isn't just lived by those in uniform, but also reflected in the strength, the support, and yes, the sacrifice of every military family. Their service is grounded in values, in a love for our country that makes those sacrifices possible, commitments that keep Canada strong. And in the minister's visit a few weeks ago and visits to come, my remarks today, we're investing.
Durante su intervención, Carney habló de un nuevo orden mundial y advirtió que el sistema internacional construido tras la Segunda Guerra Mundial está bajo presión. Mencionó algunas amenazas como el expansionismo ruso, el avance tecnológico militar y el impacto del cambio climático en la seguridad nacional. Más allá de la retórica, estas declaraciones evidencian una postura estratégica. Si Washington abandona su papel como garante del orden internacional, Canadá está dispuesto a buscar socios alternativos. Esto supone un cambio de paradigma para un país que históricamente ha mantenido su política exterior muy alineada con la Casa Blanca.
Put in place retaliatory tariffs in a way that looks to have the minimum impact here in Canada. That's why there's been various adjustments over time to emissions and others. We're in a position where we have the prospect, or we're engaged in discussions with the U.S., as you know, and have been for some time. The issues at the core of those negotiations will be similar to some of the issues that will come up naturally through CUSMA. There are issues around strategic sectors, steel, aluminum, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, lumber. And from our perspective, we're concentrating on those areas where our economies are deeply integrated, and working for win-win solutions between the two countries.
En otro momento, el primer ministro se refirió a las negociaciones comerciales con Estados Unidos. Afirmó que no aceptará acuerdos desequilibrados y que cualquier tratado deberá beneficiar a Canadá de forma tangible, especialmente en sectores estratégicos como acero, aluminio, automotriz, farmacéutico y forestal. Esta firmeza responde a las recientes medidas proteccionistas de la administración de Trump, incluyendo el aumento de aranceles. Paralelamente, Carney ordenó revisar la compra de aviones de combate F-35 a empresas estadounidenses, evaluando si realmente son la mejor opción para las necesidades de defensas en el Ártico.
This rift with the U.S. The military has long said they want the F-35. We're now hearing that the military has told you they want to stick with that contract. Did you expect the forces to potentially say something different? And how much of this is part of a negotiation tactic with President Trump?
No, I'd say a couple of things. First off, the review is not completed, so there's no settled advice into the government. First point. Second, the nature of aerial combat, the nature of warfare, the nature of our responsibilities, the scale of our investment, all of those elements have changed over the course of recent years, and then with respect to the commitment, the resources that we're going to put in, that quadrupling of resources by the end of this decade. We have a responsibility to make sure that those are spent in the way that has a maximum impact. I'll give you an example. We have a much greater threat, associated responsibilities in the Arctic. We've taken a number of steps over the horizon radar, early stage of that process, having forces on land, air, and the sea, 365 days a year, moving that from 4 months. But we also need the appropriate air capabilities for the Arctic, for the runways in the Arctic, for the threats that we're faced in the Arctic as well. And so part of the consideration is the F-35 best suited for that, relative to other options. Other considerations, as Canadians would expect, is value for money and economic impact here in Canada. So I would make the core point that the review is driven by the need and the responsibilities and approach that we're taking to making sure that this very large and necessary investment in defense
La rueda de prensa coincidió con otro gesto simbólico. La normativa de mujeres y niñas de Canadá cancelaron todos sus viajes a Estados Unidos por motivos de seguridad, debido a las políticas migratorias y restricciones de entradas impuestas recientemente. Aunque pueda parecer un hecho menor, esta decisión refleja el deterioro de la percepción de Estados Unidos entre organizaciones civiles canadienses. También se suma a las alertas emitidas por sindicatos y centros educativos contra viajes no esenciales al país, ante el riesgo de incidentes en fronteras y aeropuertos. El conjunto de estas acciones muestra un patrón. Canadá se prepara para un escenario en el que su principal socio comercial y aliado histórico deja de ser un interlocutor confiable, con más inversión militar, nuevas alianzas internacionales y un discurso diplomático más independiente. Ottawa está enviando un mensaje directo. Su seguridad y su política exterior ya no dependen exclusivamente de Washington. Pero déjame saber qué piensas tú. ¿Qué opinan de la postura de Canadá frente al gobierno de Trump? ¿Creen que esa estrategia de diversificación de alianzas beneficiará a largo plazo al país? No olvides suscribirte, darle a like y compartan este video para que más personas puedan entender lo que está pasando en el mundo. Esto es Rumor de Estado.